So far, the Talon seems a bit cleaner and a bit more corrected than I was hoping it would be. I was kind of basing my hopes around my experience of the Apex. I mean, obviously it's really tough to get everything in one package, right? I feel from Blazar, the Mantis series, they strike a really good balance of being kind of clean, but they do have character in them. One theory commenter threw out there, which I think sounds very logical, is that they kept the Talon very neutral and clean for autofocus performance. I'm a little bit let down, but then at the same time I feel like I can't be too critical because, like I said, it's an autofocus anamorphic lens. What more do you want?
Okay, 2 days with the lens so far. It is sharper than I expected, but I don't find it to be clinically sharp. There's a bit of chromatic aberration, not too heavy. The vignette slowly fades, stopping it down, and it's just about gone by T5.6. As you could see from the earlier samples, center sharpness is great. Image edge is still sharp, showing slight sharpness fall off from the center. Further sharpness fall off in the far corner, but still good. Everything improves slightly by T2.8. Same thing for T4. The real sharpness leap happens at 5.6. Here chromatic aberration and slight haloing of bright parts of the image almost disappear. At T11 a slight lens diffraction shows up. With T16 being much less sharp due to further diffraction. Distortion is present, barrel distortion specifically, nicely complementing the anamorphic look. The distortion is not very noticeable, it's more pronounced on the Apex 50mm T1.8. Autofocus performance was okay in pitch dark conditions, considering this is not a native lens. I would say it's quite decent in terms of accuracy. I was worried that the 1.5 times squeeze image would distort faces being recognizable, but the AF and the Sony A1 II does not seem to have a problem at all. Right as I received my 50mm Talon, Cam received a new series from Blazar called Viper.
Now, the Vipers. What is the Viper?
According to Cam, they were meant to strike a balance between the high character Remus and the more clean traditional look of the Mantis. Cam even stated that the Talon lenses were the autofocus version of the Viper lenses. After a few days and looking over sample footage, I am somewhat recovering from the initial disappointment. The lens is sharper and more corrected than I expected. In some scenarios I can clearly see the distortion and swirly character of the background, while in other settings it's not obvious. I find it to be a nice balance between a clean, modern and vintage aesthetic. Before I wrap this up, I do want to put the Talon next to the Apex in a more practical way. With the Talon being a 1.5 times anamorphic, if I shoot it in 16:9 and de-squeeze the footage, the image becomes roughly 2.67 against 1. As opposed to the traditional scope, 2.39 to 1. That means if I want a traditional 2.39 times delivery, I'm not doing any dramatic cropping. I'm just trimming the footage slightly. You're basically shaving off around 10% to land in proper scope. The Apex behaves differently. Because it's 1.33 times X and it's Super 35 coverage, I've often used it by keeping the full vertical resolution and stretching the width to 133%. For 16:9 final output, that's actually a really elegant solution. In that sense, the Apex feels more hybrid. The Talon feels more traditionally anamorphic. It wants to live in scope. Back in 2023, I absolutely fell in love with the look of Greatjoy 85mm, but the lens was huge. The Talon gives you a version of that anamorphic character, but with autofocus and much more manageable form factor. It doesn't replace the more extreme character lenses, but it makes anamorphic practical. I'm really happy with this lens now that I've had a chance to spend a little bit of time with it. It's not perfect, but you know, what is? Now more than ever, we are drowning in options. If you had told me that I would have a full frame autofocus anamorphic lens in my hands 3 years ago, I would have not believed that. And I didn't think there was a market for it, but I stand corrected and I'm happy. Hope you enjoyed the video. Take care guys, and see you in the next one.